Let's start today talking about food shortages. There is a new storyline, a new narrative claims that food shortages are imminent in the United States and that there's going to be no food. The shelves will be bare, as the failed former president Donald Trump would often like to say. Joe Biden even said it. This was about 3 weeks ago, and the context was the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the related sanctions and responses. Here's Joe Biden 3 weeks ago.
Nothing more to report. With regard to food shortage, yes, we did talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well.
So on the other hand, we also have kind of the more hyperbolic, fear-based kind of reactionary claims. Here's one example from a right-wing host, Dan Bongino, who had a segment called "The Devastating Food Crisis is Coming. Please prepare now." And the preppers loving this.
The food crisis coming up. It's a topic we've covered on the show and the radio show often.
Right.
There's a devastating food crisis coming, ladies and gentlemen, and you darn well better be prepared. Listen, I care about you a lot. I'm not kidding. I love the audience. That's why there's an email on our website. That's why I leave the Facebook page open for your messages.
Right.
I am here for you. I am one of you. I came from you. I'm a middle-class kid who had a middle-class job with a middle-class life.
Okay. So anyway, without his full biography, the point is the right is increasingly saying food shortages are coming. Many of the people predicting the food shortages will also sell you food, packaged food, bonus buckets. There's a lot of comments if you look at the Dan Bongino piece where people saying, from my Bible study group, we can get food and all of this different stuff. So let's talk it through. Is it possible that we could have a food shortage? Of course. Of course. There have been food shortages in history and they are possible. The first step in really thinking critically about this is, what do we mean by a food shortage? Because there are some people who seem to think that a food shortage is, my favorite orange juice wasn't available. I had to get pulp instead of no pulp. Or I like turkey bacon, but there was no turkey bacon, so I had to consider regular bacon or plant-based bacon. That's not really a food shortage. Now, I'm going to get to that, which is the products we expect just aren't there. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But a food shortage, when we talk about it economically, is there's not enough energy, or there's close to not enough energy, meaning calories available for the proper nutrition of a population. And I would even go further. I would say there's not enough calories available from a reasonably diverse set of foods. What I mean by that is, imagine that in order to meet our caloric needs, everybody had to be drinking corn syrup. Like, okay, we'd be getting our calories, but I would still consider that to be a food shortage because it's not a calorie shortage, but it's definitely a shortage of a reasonably diverse diet. So the first question is an actual shortage based on that softer definition, not even going to be able to really get the food groups we need, is that likely this year based on the evidence we have? And the answer is no. It's hard to say more, but there's not going to be a food group calorie deficit. There's going to be enough meat. There's going to be enough dairy. There's going to be enough produce. There will be enough grains. We're not going to actually have a shortage of calories from any particular food group. Now, might there be a situation where in Portland, Oregon, there's no chicken breast for a day at the local store and you've got to get chicken thigh? Yeah, that could happen. Those things anecdotally are happening, and we'll talk about why in a moment. But my store was out of a particular cookie, and so I had to get the Milano. Most of us aren't savages, so we get dark chocolate. You might have to get the milk chocolate. I know it's not good. It's ugly. I get it. It's ugly. I'm for dark chocolate as much as the next guy, but that's not really a food shortage, right? The shelves aren't bare. Now, let's get into what might happen, just so we all know and we're aware and we're prepared. Is it possible that specific products might ebb and flow in their supply so that you might have to choose something different that you're used to getting? Yeah, that is possible. And that's definitely different than what most of us in the United States are used to. The war in Ukraine is likely to disrupt wheat and sunflower seed oil. And sunflower seed oil is actually in a lot of foods that many of us buy. but it's more likely to be disruptive to countries other than the United States. The U.S. is actually a big wheat exporter and producer. Poorer nations that that rely more heavily on imports of wheat are going to be more at risk, for example. So like the wheat issue will hit Egypt, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Turkey, some other countries. There will likely not be shortages, but there might be some limited availability of meat, dairy, and some animal products. There might also be a shortage, lack of availability, I think is the word I should say, of some plant-based vegan proteins. Those for two reasons. One, there are some people who, if they don't see the meat that they want, they might try the plant-based alternative. The plant-based alternatives are also highly processed foods, and the supply chain can't be accelerated that easily. A lot of those processed items, you can't easily adjust the supply chain quickly. It can take 6 to 9 months. So you might see that. So we might see slight, sporadic, regional, temporary lack of availability of certain products. Now, what could cause the appearance of an actual shortage? Panic buying, like we saw early in the pandemic. And in that case, is it really a shortage if a ton of people are pre-purchasing a year's worth of whatever? And what I mean by that is, think back to the so-called toilet paper shortage. There was no toilet paper on the shelves. That's true. But the reason was that a ton of people bought a year's supply. So they're good now for a year. And as we saw, once the supply normalized, we had fewer people buying the toilet paper because they pre-purchased it in the first month of the pandemic. So that was an apparent shortage. It wasn't a real shortage. It's also, by the way, interesting how a lot of the producers of some of these foods, Tyson, Purdue, for example, in poultry, they've had record profits above and beyond the rate of inflation. So it's not just inflation that's driving their profit at a time of allegedly significantly higher costs to them. So I'm not ready to say that there is price gouging going on. But it is interesting that profit margins remain at record highs despite supposedly higher costs and inflation and all of that. So we're going to follow it. That's the best assessment we have right now based on the information that we have. Science has shown us that lowering your body temperature at night improves sleep in many ways. Our sponsor, Chili Sleep, creates systems that cool down your bed, promoting deeper, higher quality sleep. It also just feels great. I use it at home. I'd recommend it to anyone, and I've recommended it to some friends who now use it as well. Chili Sleep's product, the Ooler, the Cube, and the Dock Pro, they're all water-based, temperature-controlled pads that fit onto your existing mattress. You can keep your bed as low as 55 degrees, as hot as 115 degrees. I like 60. Their new Dock Pro sleep system has double the cooling power of other models, 5 times the cooling contact, whisper quiet. You can control it with your phone. It's awesome. With Chili Sleep, there's no more feeling hot at night, no more sweating. Cooling your bed down like this is amazing. You really have to try it for yourself. When you go to chilisleep.com/Pacman, you'll get 30% off the Ooler and Cube sleep systems and 10% off the new Dock Pro. This offer is only for my audience. The link is down below.